all of us must maintain our thirst and our desire to learn. My name is Deborah Smith-Gregory. I am embedded in the community. I have been a part of the Newark community for the past at least 50 years. I am a mother, a grandmother, a sister woman, a companion, a volunteer, a writer. The best snapshot of me is how I was raised. And that is, I am the adopted daughter of a woman by the name of Dorothy Anderson, who had the first Black-owned and operated private school in Newark. It was called, at the time, it was called Brock Academy. It had changed many names, but always the same school. It was 45 years old before it went out of business as United Academy, and Brock Academy gave me my foundation. My guardian and her partner started the school, and her partner was someone in the USO, an entertainer. So her belief was that children learn by the arts. And so the kindergartners, the preschool, we all had to perform. So every year we put on a huge spring festival that would last a couple of days, and that was everyone from the 3-year-olds all the way up. And the theme would always be something around the world. And so what we would have to do is learn different dances, but we would also learn the culture. So say we learned the can-can, and we had to perform the can-can, but we had to learn about where the can-can came from and what it meant, etc., etc. Or the Cossacks with the Russians and the dance that they would do. That's how we learned. A Western thing, we would learn about what it was in Western America. That's how we learned, and it was fun. We learned public speaking. We learned singing. We learned always dancing. We did skits. We would always do, for Black History Month, we would do a skit. For Thanksgiving, we would do skits. And it was fun. Professor Robert Banks was one of the music teachers. There was always a very strong music teacher and always a very strong dance teacher. The dance teacher was Russian and taught us ballet as our basic, and then would teach us various dances. And United Academy was my foundation. So when I went out into the public school world in the 8th grade and went to Clinton Place, I was well-rounded. I was very well-rounded, and going from there to Central High School, well-rounded. I think that the arts get that back seat. There's been times where Newark has cut art and music and dance teachers, and we've had to protest it. One of the greatest protests that I remember was when they had it was called program modifications, where they were going to modify the programs for the arts in the Newark Public Schools. And Amina Baraka, she went ballistic. And we all came to a school board meeting and were able, based on her leading, we were able to overturn program modifications. But it was a lot, but it was a fight. And so that's the other part of my, I guess, who I am, having always been in some type of a struggle to make the community better, to make the quality of life better for everyone. There's always been the challenge of administration not having their finger on the pulse of what the schools have to go through. It was somewhat better under, say, Superintendent Campbell, and it was a whole lot better under Superintendent Bolden. We fought to have her be our superintendent. We had to wage a political fight in order for her to become the superintendent and to remain the superintendent. It seems like there's a disconnect between what happens in the schools or on the ground and what policies and what the administration is doling out as this is what you're to do. Oftentimes it's based on some political wind that's blowing through that really has nothing to do with the achievement of young people. And so right now it is all about testing to the exclusion of the arts, to the exclusion of activities. When I was an English and language arts teacher, I taught language arts, public speaking, creative writing, journalism. I was the student government advisor, the student leadership advisor, the newspaper co-advisor, and the speech team co-chair. So all of that is what keeps kids. It would be two parts to the day: the school day, and then the after school day, when the school would really come alive with the clubs and the activities, even athletics. So there was always a group of students in the school doing something after school. The challenge is making the policymakers understand and then act and then adjust themselves to the students and the educators and the staff, because right now it's been that, except with Marion Bolden. She made sure that she kept in touch and kept her finger on the pulse of what was happening in her schools. We have to start educating our young people. And when I say young people, I mean those that are in school, those that are in college. We have to educate them, to teach them. There was a philosopher and an educational specialist by the name of John Dewey who said that education is a lifelong task. You have to be a lifelong learner. And if we make it where young people understand that they have to be a lifelong learner and voting is a part of that, then they will be more engaged. Unfortunately, the pandemic disengaged us, and we literally went into lockdown, each of us in our own little space. And even though that's been a couple of years now, we're still suffering from it, but it's almost like we're trying to pretend that everything is okay and let's get back to normal and not address the issues of that isolation that is still prevalent among us. Dorothy Anderson, the co-founder of Brock/United Academy, because she understood the education of a whole child. Like the psychologist James Comer, Dr. Comer said, you have to educate a whole person. And she understood that. And it wasn't that we didn't have academics. The academics were rigid and vigorous, but there was a high expectation of us, and that we could rise to that we could memorize a lengthy speech, that we could memorize a skit, that we could learn the background about a dance and transport ourselves to that place and be in that place and dance from there, as opposed to reading something, memorizing so you pass a test, and then forgetting about it. Education has to be embedded in your spirit. That's where it lives. And so that is what Dorothy, we called her Dottie, and she didn't just take me in, she took in a lot of people. We had a saying about her. There was an old woman who lived in her shoe. She had so many people, she had so many children, she didn't know what to do. So she loved them, and her name was Dottie. Faith is spirit. And I've had occasions throughout my life to know things that happened to me that I couldn't explain was the display of faith, of strengthening my faith to make me know that regardless to what the situation or the circumstance is, there is going to be something better. That there's something more, there's something better. I think when I needed some money. My child, this was when they were young, my child ripped his arm on a fence and needed stitches, and at the time I needed money to go to the doctor. I'm walking down the street, $80 is flying in the street, literally. These $20 bills are flying, and I just pick them up, and that's what the doctor cost, $80. And that has happened repeatedly, so how can I not have faith? Jazz, live entertainment, music, art, dance, reading. Books are my friends. I have so many books, and throughout my entire life, when I didn't have any friends and I was moving around from different places and different homes and what have you, I always had books. They were my friends, and generally they were books about far off places, and I would read, and that's where I would go. And so I was able, before Star Trek and all that other stuff, I was able to transport myself, like beam me up, take me somewhere else, and immerse me in there. And they would have to say, come on, girl, you better get over here. It's time to eat, or it's time to do that, or something. I learned to play the piano, and I remember practicing for hours. So music has always brought me joy, and it still does, which is why I'm always going to a show, and there's nothing like live entertainment. There's nothing like it, hands down. There's nothing like it. The voice, the orchestra, the music, it's you and the performer, and you get a chance to be in a different space together for a moment, and it's cleansing, it's soothing, it's calming. You come to my house, you are going to hear jazz. Now listen, don't get me wrong, I party, but you're going to listen to some jazz too. To bring it to life, when I was a teacher and I taught the language arts, we would say we were teaching. I was teaching a humanities course around the literature of, say, women. We would explore all areas of that. The poetry that women have written, the songs that women have written. There was a teacher at Barringer who would teach We would always used to say, woo, but she would teach literature of the supernatural and death. And she would literally take her students into the cemetery. We'd be like, But it's all a part of the experience. It's experiential learning. That's what our children, black children, I can't speak for anyone else, black children need experiential learning. They would look at me because I focus on people. I listen to people. One of the things that I didn't say was that while I was a teacher, I was also the editor of the New Jersey Afro-American newspaper and editor of the New Jersey Prospectus News magazine as well. And you must listen to people in order to really hear them beyond what they're saying, to have a better feel for them. So I would say focus, to the point that people sometimes think that I'm being rude because I don't see them in passing, because I'm focused. And I want the person that I'm speaking to have my full undivided attention. I don't want them to think that I'm half listening. And I think young people and we feed each other. They feed me energy, I feed them. And again, it's listening to them, like fully listening to them, not lecturing them, not giving advice, not passing judgment, just listening. Well, I do have a pearl because I'm not in the school system anymore, but I know that all of us must maintain our thirst and our desire to learn and to be in awe of simple things that God places before us, but to be willing to learn and not say, well, that's just how I am, I can't change, but to be willing to change, to be willing to grow. That's what we all get to do until we are not here anymore. People say, you're so busy, you do this, you do that. And I said, and there will be a time when I can't, and when I can't, I won't. But right now, why not? I continue to learn and to grow.